I'm 85 years old, and I spend most of my days watching the sand slip through the hourglass, knowing exactly how little is left. I'm telling you this because by the time the body finally breaks, the damage is already done. I spent my 60s feeling like a king, while in reality, I was rotting from the inside out because I ignored 3 silent whispers from my blood. Diabetes doesn't scream when it arrives. It's a thief that creeps through your hallways at night, stealing your sight, your strength, and your future, while you're busy making excuses for just getting older. If I had listened to my body 20 years ago, I wouldn't be sitting here today, counting out a dozen pills just to earn the right to see the sun set one more time. The first sign I dismissed was a thirst that felt like it was carved into my very marrow, a dryness that no amount of water could ever hope to reach. I remember sitting at my kitchen table, drinking glass after glass until my stomach was heavy with liquid, yet my mouth still felt like it was full of hot ash. I told Martha I was finally being healthy, staying hydrated like the doctors on the news always suggested. But it wasn't health. It was an internal alarm. I'd finish a full liter, and within 10 minutes, my tongue would be stuck to the roof of my mouth again. This thirst followed me into the dark, breaking my sleep 3 or 4 times every single night. I'd stumble to the sink in the moonlight, my head spinning, drinking straight from the tap, as if I were trying to put out a fire in my throat. This is your body desperately trying to drown the excess sugar in your blood, attempting to flush the poison through your kidneys before it scours your delicate arteries like shards of broken glass. It isn't just being thirsty. It's your system screaming that it's being pickled in its own glucose. If you cannot leave the house without a water bottle, or if the middle of the night has become a series of frantic trips to the faucet, do not congratulate yourself on your hydration habit. Your body is trying to put out a fire that is already consuming your internal organs from the inside. The second sign was the one that fed my ego, and that's exactly why it was so dangerous. I was losing weight without lifting a finger, and at 68, I thought I'd finally found a miracle. I noticed my belt moving back 1 notch, then another, and I felt smug about it. I hadn't changed my diet. In fact, I was eating more than ever, because I felt a strange, hollow hunger that gnawed at me from dawn until dusk. And I certainly wasn't exercising. I told my friends I'd finally cracked the code of my metabolism, and I bought smaller trousers with a pride that was entirely unearned. I thought I was getting younger. In reality, my body was literally eating its own flesh to stay alive. Because the insulin in my system had failed, the sugar from my food was trapped in my blood, unable to reach my cells. My body thought it was starving in a land of plenty, so it began a desperate process of breaking down its own muscle and fat just to keep my heart beating. It was a slow, quiet, self-cannibalization. If the scale is dropping and you can't point to a hard day's work or a change in your kitchen, do not celebrate. A shrinking body without effort is not a blessing. It is a sign of metabolic collapse. Some weight loss is just the slow, silent disappearance of your future. The third sign was a heavy, suffocating fatigue that I mistook for the natural, weary rhythm of old age. I'm not talking about being tired after a day of gardening. I'm talking about a thick, grey fog that settled over my brain and my limbs every single afternoon like a wet blanket. I'd have a simple lunch, and 20 minutes later, I felt like my blood had been replaced with liquid lead. I couldn't keep my eyes open if my life depended on it, and no amount of caffeine could cut through that haze. I started taking power naps that turned into 3-hour blackouts, and I'd wake up feeling even more exhausted, my limbs heavy and my temper short. This happens because your cells are effectively suffocating. They aren't getting the fuel they need to function, leaving you tired and wired at the same time. Your brain is racing with stress while your body is shutting down. Monitor your energy not by the clock, but by your meals. If you feel a physical crash or a mental fog 2 hours after you eat, your internal engine is failing to process its life force. Don't wait until you're 85 to realize that being constantly exhausted isn't a personality trait. It's a warning that your system is breaking down. Time is the only thing you cannot buy back, and health is the currency that buys you more of it. I have to spend my final years watching my blood sugar with a clinical precision that takes all the joy out of living, simply because I didn't listen when the signs were small. Stop treating your body like a machine that will always run, and start treating it like a conversation. If you listen to the whispers of thirst, the mystery of weight loss, and the weight of fatigue today, you won't have to listen to the roar of a crisis tomorrow. Listen while you still have a choice.